Welcome back to the show where we run you through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. After we run you through the news you need to know about, we run you through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. We have some concerning news to talk about today that I'm kind of concerned about. I hope doesn't happen. And we're getting closer and closer to the draft, ladies and gentlemen. It's getting really excited. So let's get into the news that you need to know about. Let's start with this one that nobody cares about. I don't think this has any huge implications on anything. The Dolphins are going to be skipping off-season workouts. This does not include training camp, obviously. It's just voluntary workouts. So, now I don't know what that means for rookie minicamp. But in terms of OTAs and stuff, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Which I'm fine with. The only concerning part, if you're a Dolphins fan, is probably the playbook, but they're still going to do Skype stuff and stuff like that, so they're still going to learn the playbook. It's just, in training camps when you really get into the nitty-gritty of it all, and to be honest with you, I just don't think this is going to really matter all that much. You still have people like Tua training with fellow teammates and stuff like that. They still do stuff like that, and I just don't think, from a physical standpoint, voluntary workouts mean that much. From a mental standpoint, if you weren't doing anything for the voluntary stuff, then obviously you might be a little bit behind the rest of the league. But they're still going to do that. So they're just not going to go into the building as far as I understand. Let's move on. It's really not that important. I know people are like, you got to talk about something, I guess. We'll get to this new story here in a second. Let's get to these next two. Dolphins to re-sign cornerback Nick Needham. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins are re-signing their final exclusive rights free agent. Miami has agreed to terms with cornerback Nick Needham. Obviously, he was undrafted out of UTEP. He's obviously had a pretty good start to his career. Been very productive, physical corner. The only thing that I think he'll always be a slot corner. Physical, great blitzing corner. He's got good instincts. Never really seems to be out of place or busted coverage is very minimal with him. I can't even remember any off the top of my head. One of the better DBs we've drafted or gotten out of college in a long time. From college straight to the Dolphins. He's definitely in the top 5 of the last 10 years for sure. Very underrated. And he'll obviously going to be competing with Justin Coleman for that spot, for that slot cornerback position. And it should be fun. I don't think he has the athleticism to play safety. I don't think he'll ever transition there. I think he'll always be a slot corner. And that's the only thing he's really lacking is explosiveness. And I think that's what it's really going to come down to between him and Justin Coleman. But a great depth player. A very solid starter in the league, and one of the diamonds of the rough that the Dolphins have found in the last few years. So I'm very excited to have him back. Really, really have always liked Nick Needham. One of the best players one of the best out of the class in 2019. This is really exciting news, and I think a lot of people are really excited about this, and I'm very excited about it as well. Dolphins to sign O-lineman DJ Fluker. DJ Fluker is joining the Dolphins. The offensive lineman is set to sign with Miami, reports Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald. Following a 4-year stint with the Chargers to start his career, the former first-round pick has bounced around the NFL recently. He spent the 2020 campaign with the Ravens, where he started in 8 games of his 16 games, so half of the year. He also played in a pair of playoff games for Baltimore, appearing in at least 40% of his team's offensive snaps in those 2 games. Fluker has shown plenty of versatility throughout his career, spending time at right tackle, left tackle, and right guard. The 30-year-old's ability to play multiple positions should provide him plenty of opportunities for snaps as a Miami Dolphin. This is a great signing for the Dolphins for depth. I mean, this guy is versatile, as the article states. Again, this comes from Pro Football Rumors. Super versatile. I've always thought DJ Fluker would be a better guard than tackle. If you just look at him, you're like, dude, that's a guard. He looks nothing like a high-level tackle should look like. Even Orlando Brown, who is kind of overweight, and that was like the knock on him coming out of the draft. He's just too big. He's not athletic enough. Even looking at him, you're like, he still looks like a tackle though. Like he kind of looks like Jonathan Ogden, but a little bit, I would say, fatter, I guess is the best way to put that. But he still looked like a tall tackle, and DJ Fluker never really looked like that. He's very physical, good in the run game. Very versatile and adds great depth. I'm very excited about this signing, and starts games and can give you quality snaps. And you're not gonna have that like a terrible drop off if he comes in the game, which is very important at the offensive line position, because if you think about some of the injuries that we have sustained, especially over the last 4 years, obviously one of the more notable ones was the Josh Sitton injury. We've had injuries to Laremy Tunsil, Brendan Albert over the years, Mike Pouncey, and those have been crippling injuries. And to have good depth on your offensive line is very important, as Dolphins fans should know. So this is a very, very good signing. Now let's get to the topic of the entire... Wait, I think we're here already, yeah. There's not a lot of news to talk about. Let's get into this. This is what I find very interesting. We've entered the NFL draft rumor zone, where who knows if any of this is true. So let's skip over some of the things that we've seen that are just kind of quick news stories that we don't need to speculate on because they're probably not true. These two reports that we're going to do very quickly come from Bleacher Report. Number one, the Dolphins have apparently heavy interest in a running back at 18. Take that with what you will. That probably, who knows if that's true or not. And number two, that Brian Flores, the rumor is that he really, really likes Michael Parsons. I think we all really like Michael Parsons. If they were somehow to get, I always talk about Najee Harris at 18. Some of the other players that I love in this draft are Michael Parsons. If they were able to get Michael Parsons at 18, which is impossible, that's a steal. Like, Michael Parsons is a great, great player. It would be a great fit in this scheme. And Jalen Phillips. I love Jalen Phillips. I think he's a great player. And that would be another great player to have on this roster, especially for the scheme, and obviously it would fit a need on the edge. And those are players that I would love to get at 18. And it's really nice to hear that, that the interest levels, the interest in these particular players, it's like there's no Andrew Thomas. I think that was the tackle out of Georgia last year. Who went to the Giants. There's none of that. We're no, I don't want that to happen. There's none of that in terms of rumors. And again, some of these rumors over the years have actually been pretty close to being true. I remember Christian Wilkins was leaked a day before, and that ended up being true. After that, really, I don't think we've had any leaks, major leaks in terms of draft stuff. So I would say take it with a grain of salt, but it's always nice to hear that stuff because those are all really good players, and the Dolphins need really good players. So, every team in the league does. And we just did. Excuse me, I didn't mean to burp like that. Let me get closer to the mic. We just redid, and if you haven't seen it, it was a very enjoyable video to do. I don't know if it came out well, but I enjoyed doing it. We went through 10 years of the Dolphins draft. From 2010 to 2020, we graded every first-round pick. And there was really only one, or you could argue, I would say two. Three, and the third one doesn't really count. Laremy Tunsil, I'm not counting. But in terms of players that were special talents, the Dolphins only really got 2 out of the 10 years. They got Mike Pouncey, who was a very, very good Pro Bowl, All-Pro caliber center. And then... obviously, Minkah Fitzpatrick, who's already been to 2 All-Pro teams early in his career. Those are the only 2 guys that really stand out to be special players. That's what this team needs to start doing, is pick special players. At least one that can stay on the team for 10 years. Because, if you look at all the 3 best players that the team drafted from 2010 to 2020 were Tunsil, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and Mike Pouncey. And other than Mike Pouncey, the other 2 didn't have long Dolphins careers. So I'm talking about first-round picks, by the way. Obviously, Xavier Howard was a special pick. They need to nail these first-round picks, and hopefully they do. And hopefully they get someone special. And that's why, which leads us into our next news story. This comes from Pro Football Rumors. And it comes from Ian Rappaport on Twitter. The Dolphins may be looking into trading down from 6. They are receiving calls about the 6th overall pick in the draft. So this is very concerning to me. for a lot of different reasons. I mean, I think the number one main reason, and like I just said, we just talked about all the first round picks of the last 10 years that haven't really been great. They have an opportunity to get a premium talent with that 6th overall pick. You know, you hear the analogy on some of these sports radio shows, these talk shows. Really, since there's going to be a big run on quarterbacks, the 6th, the 5th pick, and even the 4th pick if the Falcons don't take them, those are like the first 3 picks in the draft. And they really are because of the run on quarterbacks. You're going to have a chance at some of the 3 best players that aren't quarterbacks at those positions. And who knows, maybe the Falcons pick a quarterback, and then you're going to have your shot at the 2 best players in the draft, which is pretty good. So I don't understand why, if you're the Dolphins. Now, granted, if they, depending on how far they trade down is the question. I would not trade out of the top 10 if I was the Dolphins. I would definitely not get behind Philly, or maybe even Dallas, who could also take someone like Kyle Pitts. You know, I'm a huge advocate for just staying at 6 and picking. And I know people are going to be like, well, you could get another first-round pick. At some point, you're going to have to start taking players. And in this draft especially, when your needs are offensive needs. I'm sorry if you guys hear the dog snoring in the background. But when your needs are offensive, what is the greatest strength of this draft? Offensive talent. To me, that's the strength of this draft, especially at the skill positions. And I'm talking about at the top of the draft. I mean, it's not even close. I mean, these guys are really, really good. I just don't understand why you would want to, and you just traded back up to 6 for some reason. And some of the rumors have been that they did that to trade down again. It's like I said, at some point, you have a top 10 pick, use it. You're likely going to get the 3rd best player in the draft is the most likely thing. Or maybe even the 2nd best player in the draft because of the run on quarterbacks. So I just have no idea why you just wouldn't sit there and take whoever it is that you feel is deserving of that pick. And it hopefully is an offensive player. Because this, again, I wish I could just make everybody rewatch the Buffalo game in December, the Raiders game in December, the Jets game, not both times, but especially the one on the road. Those games were awful offensively. We were not good. And that's one of the big reasons why this team didn't get over the hump. We won 10 games, but the offense wasn't consistent enough. The defense was good pretty much every game it played in. It had its moments, especially early on in the year, but after that, they were pretty consistent. Offensively, we weren't. We were all over the place. And especially with the young quarterback, I just don't understand why, and it's the biggest weakness on the team is playmaking. And people want to bring up Devontae Parker and Preston Williams. I don't understand why you guys want to run that back. Not only are they not as good as we think they are, but they keep getting injured. So I just don't understand. And Mike Gesicki is a good player, but he's not a difference maker enough to be like, oh, we could just build an offense around him. This team needs more playmaking on it, and it's very apparent. I think in terms of, our tight ends were the most productive unit on our offense the last month of the year. And none of those guys, I would say, are playmakers, except Mike Gesicki. And I'm talking about as a collective group they were. And to be honest with you, they were the most consistent positional group on the offensive side of the ball the entire season. So they need to get playmaking. I hope they don't trade down. And I know a lot of people are like, well, if you have a top 10 pick, and you've heard older GMs say this too, you have to sit there, and I think you have to just take it. Especially when you look at the map of this draft and where it looks like it's going. It's like, well, dang, we're going to have an opportunity to get a top player, a top 3 player, top 2 player that's not a quarterback in this draft if we just sit here. And the players in this draft are really good. It's when you talk about the top end talent. And you need playmakers, and the best players at the top of the draft are playmakers. To me, it doesn't make any sense to trade down. I hope they don't do it. And especially if they trade down to somewhere like 15 or 16 or 17 or 13 or 14, I think that's a big mistake in my opinion. At some point you're going to have to start cashing in on your good luck. And I think this is one of these situations. And you hear people like Omar Kelly say, well, I would trade all the way into the 2nd round with the 18th overall pick. To me, that's insane. Like, definitely don't trade out of the 1st round at the 18th pick. I think you have an opportunity to get some very good players in this draft. And to have 2 first-round picks that are pretty high picks, I feel like you have to kind of cash in on those. That's just how I feel about it. And I know a lot of people are going to disagree with that. But to me, at some point, you're going to have to get premium players. And like I said, the last 10 years of Dolphins football, those were few and far between. I mean, very few and far between. And they have an opportunity to get at least one of those guys, especially with the 6th overall pick. And especially if they don't trade down, they have an opportunity to get one of those guys, get one of those special players. So I hope they don't trade down. I hope it's just a rumor. But, I mean, we're only, I think, 9 days away from the draft. So we'll see. Before we get into the fan Q&A, because we're done with the news, 15 minutes of news is actually a lot more than I thought it would be. Because you only, like, think 4 news stories. Great, by the way, great signing by the Dolphins to get DJ Fluker. I'm glad they got one of these good veteran signings, because there's some good players still out there. Obviously, they missed out on Clowney. I don't think Lawrence Guy has signed anywhere yet, so he's still available. But yeah, I'm glad they got one of them. And DJ Fluker definitely was one of those guys on my list. Like, that's just a good player to come off the bench and just to have on your team as an insurance policy. So I'm very happy about that. And so let's get into fan Q&A. But before we get into questions, I want to say this. If you guys play Madden Ultimate Team, sorry guys. Oof. If you guys play Madden Ultimate Team, I'm looking for people to play squads with. So my gamer tag on PlayStation Network is Panthers219. Don't ask about the stupid gamer tag. It is what it is. And if you guys want to play MUT squads, please send me an invite or send me a friend request, and we can get going on that. But let's get into the fan Q&A. Sorry guys, I'm just a lot of dead air. We got 12 questions, which is pretty good. This first one comes from Casey Fanatic. He says, "Do you think our offensive line is a finished product, or do we need some positional upgrades?" I mean, we definitely need a center. I don't think it's finished. We need a center pretty bad. So I would say Landon Dickerson is another great example of someone who could fall to the second round, or someone we might have to trade up to get in the first round. Like, remember guys, we missed out on Brandon Ayuk. We've missed out on people like Miles Jack, because teams have been a little bit more aggressive than us. There's someone else that I'm forgetting that we missed out on. Joshua Dobbs, Jonathan Taylor. We were trying to get them, and obviously we weren't aggressive enough, and they kind of slipped us a little, Sorry. So, to answer your question, Casey Fanatic, no, I don't think so. And hopefully they're aggressive in this draft to get people like Landon Dickerson, who might fall to the second round, like a Najee Harris, who might fall to the second round, to get some of these players that are very talented and premium picks at that position. I mean, if you get Najee Harris or Landon Dickerson in the second round, that's amazing. Like, it's amazing value there. So to answer your question, Casey, no. I think they need to get a center, and hopefully it's Landon Dickerson. This next question comes from Ahmed. He says, "Did you decide if you're going to change, if there are any changes you're going to make to your oh, God, good Lord in heaven. Sorry, guys. Jesus. I don't think I could have butchered that even if I tried to." This next question comes from Ahmed. He says, "Did you decide if there are any changes you're going to make to your channel or content?" Yes, but they won't be for a long time, I will say. Like, a good amount of time. So I wouldn't say anything. I'm thinking about it. I'm trying to see what would improve the channel, make it more popular. Because I do think this is a good show, and I do enjoy doing it. But the channel isn't growing, and it hasn't for a while. And that's what's really concerning me a little bit. Not that I would ever stop doing it, but I do want to improve it and continue to grow. I think it would be dumb to just be satisfied with where it is now. So there are definitely some changes that will happen in the future, I would say. This next question comes from SM, and your comments are every time you guys criticize or comment about something that you would like to see improved, they are being heard. This next question comes from SM. He says, even though you might not like to hear this, we are in a prime position to make a deal for Deshaun Watson. I mean, I love Deshaun Watson. Maybe not this season, but at the end of next year, we will know what we have with Tua, and the court cases will have run its course. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that, not just football anymore about Deshaun Watson. There's a lot going on there. Hopefully by this time next year, we'll know that Tua is a great Q quarterback. So I hope that happens. This next question comes from SM. He says, would you rather draft 2 Bama wide receivers, the 2 DNs from the U, or the 2 running backs from North Carolina? I would definitely rather draft the 2 Bama receivers. I don't like Greg Rousseau and Javonte Williams. I know Michael Carter. I don't really like Javonte Williams as much. I'm not a huge fan of those two. So I would say the better 2 pair would be the Bama receivers. So I would say the Bama receivers. This next question comes from JackPack18. Excluding Tua, which rookie from last year impressed you the most? Who disappointed you the most? Who impressed me the most? Brandon Jones really impressed me. I didn't think anything of Brandon Jones. I was like, all right, we'll see how this turns. I wasn't excited about it, but he just surprised me. I mean, Raekwon Davis is another one that surprised me. But I would say Brandon Jones is probably the one that surprised me the most. And I would say the one that I was disappointed in the most, I'm trying to think of last year's class right now. Austin Jackson did very well. I actually was surprised about Austin Jackson too. I was worried about him, and he played a lot better than I thought he would. People forget that, we did not expect that offensive line to be good at all. Not even serviceable. We thought they were going to be really bad. We thought that was the weakness of the team, and it turns out, Austin Jackson, Robert Hunt, and Solomon Kinley, all pretty good players. So the one that disappointed me the most, I would probably say Igbenogany. For him not to get on the field pretty much at all, other than obviously due to injuries. And then when he did get on the field, I didn't expect him to be that bad. Let's just put it that way. This next question comes from TR3MC. He says, hey Skag, do you think Miami needs to prioritize the running back position in this draft or free agency to help take some pressure off of Tua this coming season? If we should use a draft pick on a... Sorry, guys. Let me redo this. This question comes from TR3MC. He says, hey, Skaggs, do you think Miami needs to prioritize the running back position in the draft? Yes, I do. And help take some pressure off Tua. Would you rather use a draft pick on a running back or free agency to do? At this point, obviously, the draft. Le'Veon Bell is probably the only guy who's left out of the group. And if the Dolphins didn't get someone in this draft, I think that would probably be the move that they would make, is get Le'Veon Bell. So, yeah. I would say if it's either Le'Veon Bell or get Najee Harris or Etienne or Javonte Williams or Hawkins or who else is out there? Michael Carter. I would say I would rather draft one. I do like Le'Veon Bell, though. SM says, so Tan at 18, that's not bad value, and I think the Dolphins would certainly think about it. I'm a huge Caleb Farley fan, though. I really, really like him. So if he's at 18, I think, which he's probably likely, that's an intriguing prospect for sure. This question comes from JackPeg18. He says, I don't know about you, but I want the O-line fix, for good with this draft. Eric Flowers is garbage, and they need a long-term answer at center. I think they should use some day 2 or day 3 capital on filling those needs. I don't think Eric Flowers is trash. I wouldn't go that far. I don't know. I don't think he's that bad where I'm like, I have to replace this guy. I don't think he's that bad at all. So I disagree with you on that one. What else did you say? Yeah, but center, you're right, Jack Pack. That's a huge need. This next question comes from KC Fanatic. He says, "Are we going to draft a quarterback?" I mean, if you get into the third round or even like late second round, and you know there may be a Kellen Mond there, that would be the only thing I could see the Dolphins doing. Is maybe to have a value on a player like that if he's still on the board, and especially if he falls to the third round. I could see that. I mean, you would have to consider it if you were Chris Greer. This question comes from Richard. He says the Dolphins should draft Ohio State running back Trey Sermon with a third pick. I actually do like him, by the way. And draft running back Larry Roundtree with the 7th round pick. He is a Ricky Williams, Jonathan Stewart clone. Double down on the position. I do like the Sermon from Ohio State. I like him a lot. He's a good player. He doesn't seem like he's that explosive. But I did like he seems like a good power. Who he reminds me of is Brandon Jacobs. He reminds me like of a Brandon Jacobs. But maybe with a little bit less power on him. But he's not LeGarrette Blount. I don't think he's as strong as those two guys, but he does kind of remind me of them. This is a question that comes from SM. He says, "How many running backs make the roster?" I would say at least 3, maybe 4. If you like Patrick Laird might still make it. I would say 3 or 4. If I had to guess. And obviously Ahmed and probably Gaskin. And Gaskin's probably the only one who's a lock. I would say everybody else is pretty much, your job is definitely questionable to say the least. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. We've 26 minutes. This is one of the shortest episodes we've ever done. But there's nothing else to talk about. So I think the next time we do the show, it'll be the draft, which is awesome. And I hope you guys enjoyed this. And I'm Skyx23. Don't forget, if you're willing to play some squads, hit me up. And I'll see you guys in the next one. A little bit of a voice crack. I don't think we can end off on that, but I'll see you guys in the next one.